off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Often read of some great services done to princes and states. And desired to see the persons by whom no services were performed. Upon inquiry, I was told that their names were to be found on no record, except a few of whom history hath represented as the vilest rogues and traitors. As to the rest, I had never once heard of them. They all appeared with dejected looks and in the meanest habits. Most of them telling me they died in poverty and disgrace, and the rest on a scaffold or a gibbet.
How's it going? Thanks for joining us for last week's episode. We aren't doing this live. We decided to try a little different format. Before I get into introductions and everything, just a few housekeeping notes. So, of course, we're reviewing Underground Railroad. That's why you clicked on this video. But what we're going to do with these recaps, we're going to take that 10-episode series and we're going to do 2 recaps at a time. And we're going to drop 5 recaps total for this show. So 2 recaps at a time, 5 episodes. We're going to put 2 episodes together. So now that's out the way, we'll get into the recap. D, how's it going?
I'm good. Y'all can see Ronnie tried to dress like me. Y'all see it,
I
right?
did not. Most definitely not. This is
try to coordinate.
No, most definitely.
He tried it. Don't let
this
him
was not planned at all. This is not planned at all.
It wasn't planned, but he knew that I was wearing this, and he decided he was going to try to dress like me. Just so y'all know.
So yeah, I'm glad to be talking about this show because, just in case you don't know, I think Barry Jenkins is one of the most important filmmakers right now. So when I heard that he was doing this show, I said, hey, D, Barry Jenkins is going to be doing Underground Railroad. We should get into this. On top of that, you should actually go and read the book. So before we actually get into the show, now that you've recently read the book, you want to talk about the novel itself for a brief second?
I do. I want to say that it's brilliant. I want to start with that. And it is brilliant in a way that takes Black stories. And I know we talk a lot about trauma and Black pain and all of that. And it's fair because we see a lot of it. But these are stories that need to be told because these are our stories. And even though we don't like them, trying to gloss it over and pretend it didn't happen doesn't help anybody. And if it's done without the torture porn, if it's done without these made up scenarios, because all of it is, to a point, imagination, but imagination based on fact helps a whole lot. And I really think that that's what it's done. It's done it brilliantly. And the thing I was telling you, I'll tell y'all what I told Ronnie, it felt like you wanted it to be a fairy tale, but Colson does such a good job of making you remember that that is not what this is. Mm-hmm. That it's painful, but it's reality and you know it. So even though you want it so bad, so badly for it to be this ending that you've written in your mind, every time you get settled, every time you feel a little bit of peace, here come Ridgeway ass. And it's like, oh my gosh. And it just makes you feel like this is exactly what they were going through.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good though. As far as the book as a whole, superb. Didn't he win the Pulitzer?
Yes, yes, it did. It won awards across the board. So, of course, if you know what I do for a living, I have to remain abreast when it comes to new literature. So, this book came out in 2016. I read it a little bit late. I read it like half a year later, but I picked it up, flipped through the pages quickly. I was like, wow, this is because this is my first Colson Whitehead novel. So what an introduction to his work. I was like, I can never do anything this well. Anybody else who wants to write a book, they should stop here because you'll never be as good as Colson Whitehead. So no, I'm
This is
saying that
it. Like
jokingly.
seriously, this is
This
it.
is it.
This is
So
it.
Barry Jenkins, he wanted to adapt, excuse me, another one of Colson Whitehead's novels that didn't quite work. So when he read this novel, he was like, nah, this is the one. And this is coming right off Moonlight. So he was like, yeah,
Mm.
this is the one. I got to do this. And who better to adapt this novel than Barry Jenkins, the magnificent writer and director. So I'm glad to have these two
Yeah.
brilliant people come together to work on this project. But
That's
D,
his boy, by the way. Barry
yeah,
Jenkins, that's his man. Like
yeah, yeah.
100 grand.
But D, when we were talking about the novel, you mentioned something interesting that I want to talk about. And every time a project like this is dropped, like there are people who say, "Oh, we get so many slave movies. We, it's just torture porn. It's black trauma." Um, so D, I want you to talk about like black trauma in relation to this novel. And you briefly touched on it, but reading the novel and watching the majority of the show now, how do you feel this work of art handled black pain and black trauma?
I want to add that I want to say that I was one of those people. So put that in perspective. I am one of those, oh my gosh, not again. I can't deal with it. I'm so tired of it. I was one of those people. So I don't want y'all to think that I'm judging anybody for trying to stay away from this. I can't even call it a genre because it's not a genre, but this part of
Yeah.
history. I get that. Like we have enough going on in our real lives right now than to watch, what's the word I want to dramatizations of what happened in the past. I get it. However, I do honestly think that these stories are important, especially since I just saw a tweet of somebody saying that the ships, there was no way
Oh
that the
yeah.
people
Someone said there was no way that
like the
black people would
transatlantic slave
stab.
trade did not happen. Like there's no way. How on earth did people lie on top of each other for months on end and make it, completely ignoring the fact that a lot of them did not. A lot of them were, and I want to put, if I'm not mistaken, the book touches on that. How there was a ship that went that did not make it. Everybody on the ship was sick and died. They just set the bitch on fire. Like that's just what happened. So it's not like it's a thing where every group of slaves that were attempted to be transported made it and everything was fine. You have to put into perspective of how many people they stole and how many of that many made it. It wasn't many at all. And then of those people, they were sick. So that is the point where it comes to breeding. I think that people need to really get into that. Like they brought the people over, there weren't enough, so they immediately were like, okay, go make more. Go make more. Because we didn't get as many of you as we wanted, so go make more. They treated them like animals, literally. Cattle, branding them and all that good stuff. So the book in itself, it reminds you of all these things without being the rape story. Because I have seen a whole lot, and that's what I think triggers me the most when it comes to it. That whenever there's a slave story, there's going to be a rape. Like it's just no question it's going to happen. And there's still a way, I think, to do it without making it porn. Like you can very well, and Barry does as well. You can tell us, the viewer, that this thing is happening without showing us that it's happening. We know. Like you don't have to, and people tend to do that. They just have to show you step by step by step how long it took, how many times it happened, how many people, and it's just, we don't need it. So I very, very much appreciate the fact that he didn't gloss over the fact that that happened, but he didn't like shove it down our throats, because there's no question. You can show us one person or tell us that one person on the plantation was being sexually assaulted. And now we know that it's all of them. Like, this person isn't special or whatever. You don't have to show us that, like, the slave or the overseer went from this cabin to this one to this one to this. We get it. We get it. And I think he understands that. I do really, really like the fact that they, well, this is away from the book. We'll get into it. But to answer your question, the book itself, I think it's just very, very tastefully done. There's care about how the children were treated, even in the brutality. There's care to how the women were treated, the men, all of it. There's still very much attention to give us enough detail without making it grotesque. And I think that's a talent in itself. And he did it very, very well. Because you still have to tell the story, right? Like, you need to say these things happen, but you can say it in a way that doesn't make people's flesh crawl or, like, cringe as much. And I think he did a great job. And it was very descriptive still, like very. But it's not like every chapter he had to show us this thing happened, because we already knew,
So I want to follow that up with two things. First of all, I do agree that and for whatever reason, there is a such thing as showing like too much Black trauma. Like, I do think like Black stories that are being told is too lopsided, but that doesn't make any, like, those stories being told any less important. The problem is that when these stories are told, the violence is the story. Like, it's all about the beatings and the whippings and very because, by the way, in comparisons to like novel and the work, the beating that Cora took for grabbing the cane is much worse in the book. But you don't need to know that. You just need to know she stepped in to save this boy. When he does show you someone getting whipped, exactly. When he does show you someone getting whipped, it's serving the story. It's showing you how savage these people are that are watching this. Now, going to the slave story part, like you said, obviously, like, we don't know enough about like slave history and in general, so I don't feel like there's too much slave literature. Like, it would be the same as like someone of the Jewish faith saying like, oh, all these World War II movies. Like, it's not too much. There are so many stories within that can be told. Yeah, right. Again, and for me personally, like, I'm not ashamed of like my heritage, because like these are like some of the most brilliant and resilient and strongest people came out of this. Like, we got hymns out of this, we got food out of this, we got holistic medicine out of this. So these people, against like some of the toughest like conditions, they found a way to survive, and that's nothing to be ashamed of. So like you said, both Mr. Whitehead and Mr. Jenkins, they found a tasteful way to do these things. So I think they really honored like these stories, and they made it true, but not in a way where it's like disparaging or distasteful. So I like the way they handled that. But I would like to shift to how certain atrocities were handled, and we could talk about that more. Like, I mentioned the grabbing the cane. So like, for instance, like Jockey's Party, like when you saw the Randalls and just how it was like a game to them. Like, what do you think about that?
Are we on the show now? We
are on the show now.
All right, let's go to the show. All right, the good thing is, I want to point out that Barry did a good job with keeping the source material very, very close. There's not this thing where, you know how Hollywood takes the worst parts of the book and makes it better for the audience. He doesn't do that. So we're gonna stick pretty close. All right. The show itself, like with Cora and Chester, that's the little boy. With Jockey in itself, Jockey is a person who has been at the plantation, from what I understand, forever. Maybe he was born there, but if I understood it correctly, he's probably about 55 to 60 years old.
Which is old in slave years. Like, that's not
old. Old that, like, to them he's like 100. That's how you can, like, do it's almost like dog years, right? Like, this is how it's done, which in itself is evil, but we'll get to it. But the scene that I think hurts the most is that they're finding a way to have joy in the midst of this misery. And Terrence, who's the evil of the two, I mean, okay, first of all, both of them are evil. Let's put that out there. If you own slaves, you're evil. That's it. Doesn't matter how you treat them. You own people, you're evil. Great. All right. But of the two evils, you would rather have James, I think, than Terrence. And the reason I say this is because there's a part of James, I think, that understands morale in a way. You cannot do anything without morale. There's nothing that will survive if people are miserable. So he gives them little pieces of joy and allows Jockey to decide when that happens. Jockey has a birthday whenever he feels like it, because why not? And I think a part of that is that Jockey's been there so long, he can tell when it's time. Like, the spirits are down, let me lift them, it's my birthday. So everybody knows when it's Jockey's birthday, it's time to have a good time. But Terrence cannot stand joy on a plantation. Like, he can't stand it. And not only that, he takes pleasure in belittling them, because he made it a point to remind Jockey that this is not your birthday. Keep that in mind. This is not your birthday, and it's not your birthday because you don't even know when your birthday is. And if you did know when it is, because you told me it's a date, it's not that date either. So whatever, you know. And it's just they showed us very quickly how cool he is, because he is just full out cool. And the point where when Chester was shaking his hand apologizing, as soon as that wine slipped, my husband hasn't read the book, as soon as that wine slipped, he was like, oh. Like, see, that's that panic, immediate panic, knowing that something has to happen for something so small. But there's a part of you that's like, oh, he's a child, he'll let, nope. And I love the fact that they showed you immediately that he does not care. Like, the smile on his face when Cora came, to me, it was almost like, oh, I get to beat two now. It wasn't like, how dare she? It was like, oh, cool. Now I get to beat the child and this girl. And then they got whipped after it. So I'm not sure what James's sexuality has to do, or if it means anything. I think it is important that they made it a point to show us. And that may be something, like there may be just like a part of him that is, they're trying to show us that he's a little softer or something. I don't know. And Terrence is maybe overcompensating. I don't know. Or maybe he's just evil. I can't tell. But they do a good job of showing us like how evil a man could be. And we'll get to Anthony, because I don't know how anybody could be worse than that. But for now, like as far as Cora and Jockey and Chester, they gave us a good point right there to show us how bad he was. And even James, because he was slick dissing him too.
Yeah. But yeah, that so like you said, they took something like from they being Barry, his team took something from the book and made it like palatable for TV without like removing like a lot of that intended meaning or impact, because it was still bad, but it was done so in a way that, okay, this isn't all of this is about. There are like several strings here, and like you mentioned, you get the dynamic between the brothers, you get because you get the like the different styles of like how they feel like a plantation should be ran. That was able to come through because we weren't focusing on this like brutal beating. I think that's important, the way they presented that. But you mentioned Big Anthony, so we might as well move on to Big Anthony now, because that was a big one. And I do think it was important to show Big Anthony running away first, because you got to see what was at risk if, you know, basically the risk that Cora and Ceasar will be taking later in this episode. You got to see that. So talk about the Big Anthony scene, in particular, the dinner party that was happening after he was captured.
I'm going to talk about the capture. I'm going to let you talk about the dinner scene. Okay. I think that is spot on as far as the point of them showing us Anthony, because it shows us, if you can't really tell, it shows us really three different perspectives. Okay, so we get to see Anthony's point of view because he's just having a day. This is arguably the most fun day they get to have on the plantation. And Anthony was still like, no, enough. I'm leaving today. Like, I cannot take anymore. I'm gone. So he runs away, and you see the urgency, like even throughout the day, he's kind of trying to blend in and just have a, walk around. And there's a woman who sees him, and there's a part of me that's like, she knows he's up to something, but of course she's not going to say anything. But it also tells us that he had to be free. Like, there is a point where he just was like, I cannot take this anymore. If this is the joy that we have, if this is what we have to look forward to, I can't do it. This is all we get. While everybody else is celebrating, he's like, this isn't enough. This will never be enough. And this is all we'll ever have. So he runs. Now, when he comes back, and after the brutality that Ronnie will tell y'all about, it clearly shows, because if you remember the beating when Cora and Chester were getting their lashings, they made it a point to show us that Ceasar wouldn't look away. And I think that's not necessarily a show of strength, or he's, I've seen it all before, or bravado. I think it's one of those things where I'm going to look at this so that if I ever have any doubt, or if I think I can stay here, this is the image that will make me remember that I cannot stay here. Like, look at what they are doing to this woman. And there's a part of me that thinks that he's already in love with her for whatever reason. Like, it could just be a thing where he saw her and he just felt something for her. But he's like, this is the woman I love, and a child that she protected. This is what they're doing to her. I need to look at it. I need to have it ingrained so that when I get ready to go, I can go. And there will be nothing to stop me, because I will remember this. And then from the slave owner's point of view, it is, I'm going to be as brutal as I can be to show y'all that you cannot run from me. And if you do run from me, this is what happens. And then, of course, Cora, it's like, I can't protect anybody here. I can't protect the people I love. I can't even protect myself. So I have to go. Now, Anthony running has at it. And with Anthony, we get, Ridgeway and Homer. We'll get to Homer.
Yeah, so the dinner party was important to show. And this is what I mean by when the show shows you violence is not gratuitous. It actually serves a purpose, because it's like the juxtaposition of having like this brutal beating happening, but at the same time you're entertained by people playing like violin and at a dinner party. And the most important thing to come out of this is the conversation. Like, there's one guest at the dinner party who's like, how can you eat when a man is being savagely beaten behind us? And then Terrence Reynolds like, whoa, who said this is a man? This is merely property.
Where's the man?
Yeah, he was like, I don't see a man behind us. Where's the man bit? But yeah, so we immediately get like just the ideology, and with that we get the justification for it all, because Mr. Randall, before he finishes Big Anthony, he reads a passage from the Bible. So it just goes to show you how the savagery, like they'll go through any length to try to justify it. Like, that was a like important piece. So like even with all of that savagery going on, like we still get important like details about like just their mindset and how they would think back then to try to justify this.
And on top of it, it's like you said, how can you eat? There is not a way that I could watch I can't watch torture of anything or anyone and eat, even if the people deserve, and I'm putting up air quotes, deserve it, right? There's nothing about me that takes pleasure in watching people suffer, okay? And that just goes to show that not only are they evil people because they think that these people are less than, they're evil just because, right? Isn't it psychopaths that can torture animals because they feel nothing?
Yeah.
That is the level that he is on. Because make no mistake, this is torture. This is not just a a justification of me showing you or punishment for something you've done, because punishment fit the crime, right? There's nothing you can say that would justify you beating this man literally all day, the whole day, then setting him on fire while making other people watch. There's nothing about it. And then to top it, add insult to injury, they're eating and having a blast. Like, this is the exhibition. Like, look at the entertainment I've given you this evening. Barbecued man. And I think the thing that made me so sick to my stomach is the woman that he got up and they're just dancing. I'm like, how are you getting joy out of this? I don't get it. I don't understand it, and I'm glad, because I don't want to. I don't. I wanted to ask you though, what are your thoughts about Prideful? Because, you know, as Connolly was the one that was whipping Chester, it was Prideful that was whipping Cora. And it seemed to me that they showed him say something to her over time. And I'm not sure if that was because he knows her, you know, he knows her mom and the story behind it, or if there's a level of guilt because of what he had to do to her.
Yeah, there is a level of guilt because, like, jumping ahead a little bit, when Terrence Randall goes into the fields and he, like, you know, touches her face, like, Prideful was like, are we good, boss? Are we good? And then Prideful, and then you know, Terrence Randall says back to Prideful, like, yeah, we're good. So make no mistake, like, Prideful knows his place in all of this. Like, he knows his place. But I think seeing what happened at the party and what he had to later do to Cora, I think even he was like, hey, this is kind of too far. So yeah, I do think he starts to, like, carry a bit of guilt, even though he's well aware of his place in all of this.
Because it means that makes Cora's punishment threefold, right? She gets the punishment because she's beat with the cane. She's beat the next day by the whip. And make no mistake, you don't get lashings and then once it's over, it's done. Those are open wounds that have to heal, right? So you have to have medicine. I'm sure there's fever, there's possible infection, all of these things that you have to go past. So this is months after you have a lashing that you have to heal, weeks at the least. And then he goes to the field to touch her face. And make no mistake, that was him marking his property. So it's now like, now you've been beaten twice, and now I'm gonna, you know, make you do whatever else I want you to do now. Like, now you're my target and you're already my prisoner. You already have to do what I say, but now I want to make sure you know what's next. For sure. He is evil. Like, gosh. But anyway, yeah.
And I think that moment was the catalyst for Cora because she wasn't buying, like, the good luck charm and stuff at first, but I think that was the catalyst for her to like turn to Ceasar, be like, okay, we need to go. But Ceasar was reading, like, a very important book. Like, it's like, and I think there's, of course, some significance here. Like, nothing is, like, by chance in this novel. So he was reading Gulliver Travels, or as it's known, Travels to Remote Nations, I think, was the title of the book. So D, like, and when we were talking about this show, I said it's a fantasy book, but the reality of it all won't allow it to rise to like fantasy level, because it's you know, the reality just pulls it down, like, back to reality. So what do you think is the parallels between, like, Gulliver's Travels and maybe, like, and by the way, there's something in episode 2 that we have to get to according to this, but what do you think is the significance between, like, the passages that he was reading out of Gulliver's Travels and, like, his experience on the plantation?
The biggest one, of course, being the passage he read to Cora about how the bigger you are, the meaner you have to be. And she immediately was like white folks. And it's significant in a way that is the way people have made things, but you don't have to be evil because you can. It's almost like just because you can doesn't mean you should type thing. But that's perfect. That's a perfect parallel to what he's dealing with because Terrence, his status has now been elevated because, of course, before he was just the master for the South, the southern part of the plantation. Of course, that's not lost because the South is the most brutal, and the North, right? So he's now Lord of the whole thing, and it's showing them that whatever atrocities they faced before is not even close to what they have now. And he made it a point to tell them that you can ask your friends about it in the South, but make no mistake, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. Ain't no more parties. We ain't doing this. And then like on his maybe third day is when he executed Anthony. I'd have ran too. Like I gotta go. Oh, and I want you to point out what he did to Caesar, because a lot of the times, like I said, there's a lot of rape that we see in the novels and stuff, and many people think about it because of the women, right? Because that's what's shown a lot. And we think the overseer comes and then, forces himself on the woman and makes her breed and all this stuff. But we a lot of times don't think about men, because if you hear he was raped, you mostly think that he was assaulted by another man in a certain fashion. But make no mistake, what Terrence did to Caesar and her counterpart, was it Felicia maybe, or Francis?
I think it's Felicia. Yeah.
But her, the one who was like, look, we gotta have sex. Like, we got to. That is rape. Terrence raped both of them. Like he did. And yes, they had to have sex with each other, but Terrence forced them. So he raped them both by making them complete that action. And like with Terrence, I mean, not Terrence, but with Caesar crying about it, it's not necessarily just him being bred as cattle. It is him being sexually assaulted by a man that he could do nothing about, and then forcing him to do that to someone else, knowing that's not what she wanted. Neither one of them wanted to do it, but he had to. And also with the thought that my baby could be coming into the world. So now that's another thing you have to think about when he didn't before. Because I'm about to run away. I ain't got time to be thinking about a child here. But he had no choice. So it's like, again, Terrence is just putting evil on top of evil on top of evil, and it is insane. And then, of course, Ridgway ass comes.
Yeah, let's actually get into that. So that's a change in the novel that I actually quite appreciate. Like, we get introduced to Ridgway like a lot sooner than expected. So how'd you feel about this? Like the meeting when Ridgway had to introduce himself to Cora and basically say like, oh, like you have that anger in you. You need to remove that because that's going to be your downfall.
I like the fact that Ridgway is a central character because, again, he's very important in the book. And like you said, we don't get to him until later. Like we know who he is, but we don't get to him until after. It's like South Carolina. Is that when we get to him?
Yeah, I think so.
But it's important, I think, that they're setting a precedent early about Ridgway's character, because the book kind of shows us who he is. We know he's a slave catcher, but they kind of throw you off a little because of Homer. They show us that Homer is this boy that he's acquired, but immediately set him free because I don't believe in owning property. Like, okay, well, maybe he's not so bad. But you remember, oh shit, he's a slave catcher. Of course he's bad. And he has a very particular habit of saying it when referring to African-American people or Black people. I won't say African-American, to Black people. And it's purposeful. And I just really like how he interacted with Cora, because much of the book is their like cat and mouse, I guess you could say, Roadrunner and Coyote, Tom and Jerry, like on site with the two of them. Of course, one having the upper hand, but in a miraculous way of events, maybe he doesn't have the upper hand. I don't know. Oh yeah, we got to get to episode 2 because they changed something in there too.
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
so I want to cover the there's one more change I wanted to talk about before we close out this recap. And it was like a Leo DiCaprio meme, like if you read the novel, because you were like, so when they're going through the swamp, there's like a montage of like different like things, and then the camera slowly pans. By the way, shout out to Barry Jenkins, frequent collaborator, James Laxton, because the camera movements are just, but the camera slowly pans and you see a snake. We'll talk about what that means later, but you should read the book. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I wanted to say this about this too. I'm typically against changing the source material if it serves no purpose, but just like with the Watchmen, if a creator can like get in between the source material and like string together and like create like a context of things that weren't there and make it like basically, because it's hard to take something from like the physical like medium to like TV, like to like so we can see it. So adding little touches like that, like very appreciated. Like it was amazing to see that snake, because the moment I saw that snake, I was like,
Because I thought she saw a body. That was my thought.
I thought it was going to be a body too, but it was the snake. So
yeah,
we'll talk about what the snake means. Yeah,
we will. But before we leave it too, we need to talk about Sam and Lovey. I mean, not Sam, Fletcher and Lovey.
We do. So I do like, because I'm watching this. So I was watching as someone who like had read the novel, but at the same time I was watching as if like this was my introduction to it. So I like the way they did Fletcher, because they didn't hold your hand and tell you who Fletcher was. Like when when Caesar meets Fletcher, you're like, what is this about?
Wait, this another slave master? What's happening?
Exactly. But yeah, I really like the way they set up that, because like you see that initial meet with Fletcher, and I don't even think there are any words in that scene. But then we see Fletcher later in the episode, and we're like, oh, this is who he is, and it ties back to that Gulliver Travels passage where Caesar is talking about, those who have names, is like, I'm paraphrasing, but those who have names live on, but the nameless, they don't exist. So so Fletcher then takes their name, and of course Fletcher was the one who gave Caesar Gulliver's Travels in the first place. So excellent touch. And the thing with Lovey, like just as reading the novel, it was so tough for me. I was like, Lovey, what are you? Yeah. What are you doing?
You get it, because of course she wants to be free too. Like, of course she does, but I don't know what she. I can't. I'm laughing only because I'm like, I guess to keep from crying, because I'm thinking, Lovey, what? I get it. I know you want to go away and you want to run, but she said it like they were going to the store. I'm going where y'all going. So she just hopped in the car. No, you can't go. But on the other hand, Cora is gonna look out for her people the best way she can, and she's like, "Does he know I'm coming?" Or shit, 2, 3, whatever. She's coming.
Two is better. Yeah, same as 1.
And I think I'm like, well, what option did they have at that point? If you send Lovey back, Lovey's dead. Like she's at this point, she's dead. She's either gonna escape or she's gonna die. Because if she goes back to the plantation, they're gonna beat it out of her, or they're not gonna believe what she says, or they're gonna set another example of, if you help or you know something and you don't say something, then this is what happens. Because again, Terrence is evil. But it just leads up to a lot, because even though we saw Connolly, his fat ass, digging through the garden, they made it a point to say, Fletcher made the point to tell them, the girl is what got y'all on the trail in the first place. Now, the question I have is, I know in the book, the reason Cora was pulled from the house was because another slave made a deal. And I'm assuming that's who was in there with Connolly. That's my guess. But they don't show who it was. Are they trying to like make us think that it was Lovey?
I feel like it was one of the Hobb women, but I don't think it was Lovey.
Okay. Oh, and one more thing. I wanted to bring up was it Hezekiah? Was that his name?
Yeah,
Hezekiah?
Hezekiah. So yeah, they were definitely like
Was
suggesting
they
something
trying to?
there.
Okay.
Like
Because I'm
you're
trying to
not
say,
alone on that one. You're not alone on that one.
okay, just want to make sure because,
Yeah.
like I said before, they made it a point to show us that James had certain mannerisms, and then there's no reason for this young child to be with you away from his mother and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
No reason other than something awful. And even though, again, they're making us decide whether they happen or not. To me, it's important because, again, it shows you just because Terrence is evil, is more brutal, doesn't make James's any less.
Also, don't let it be lost on you that this is a plantation where Negroes aren't allowed to like read or basically have any outside knowledge. But there was once a boy who could recite the Declaration of Independence, and I wonder how he learned that.
How you think he learned it? What you think happened? Who taught it to him?
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Because Terrence knew it pretty easy, didn't he?
Yep.
Spit it.
Yep.
Spit it right quick. Okay.
Yep. So just saying.
Just saying. Anyway, yeah.
But yeah, that's all we have. I think. Did you have any closing remarks for the Georgia episode?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. I want Connolly to die. I want Terrence to die. I want Ridgeway to die. I want James. Well, he's dead, thankfully. I don't know how I feel about home. Like I've never. Okay, I will say this though. I have never been less interested in what happened to a child than to what happened to the child that tried to get Cora. It is what it is.
Yes.
Just want to say that because we want to add. Want to add that made her now they've got another reason because now she's a murderer. Just want to put that out there because that's going to be an important theme throughout the rest of it. She's not just a runaway. She murdered a child, a white child.
Fuck them kids. But that's all we have for the Georgia episode. We're gonna take a brief break and then we'll come back for episode 2, which is entitled South Carolina. Peace.
South Carolina. Peace.
This is science. What the doctors are doing here in Griffin is unprecedented. We can't expect everyone to understand. But you certainly must trust. What we are doing here is in the very best interest of the Negro people.
All right, thanks for joining us again. Hopefully you enjoyed our recap of episode 1 of Underground Railroad entitled Georgia. This is episode 2, South Carolina. And D, I have a history lesson for you.
You got to change the banner. It still say Georgia.
Thank you. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
So D, I have a history lesson for you.
I'm ready.
All right, so what I love about this piece of work is that it shows that slavery came in many different forms. So in Georgia, heavily plantation based, there were like overseers, and basically there were like overseers for like X amount of slaves. You work from sundown to sun up. And South Carolina, believe it or not, slaves. African American slaves were like the highest population in the state. There were fewer white people in South Carolina than African American slaves, and there's for a specific reason. So the chief export of South Carolina was rice. So you needed a lot of hands to tend to the rice fields. So they brought in more and more slaves, and there's also a second reason for that. Most of the slaves they imported were from the West Indies, and those slaves caused hell in the West Indies. So when they were moved to South Carolina, it was like, hey, we're gonna like give these slaves like the thin veneer of like freedom so they don't kill us all, since it's a lot more of them. Yeah, be nice to us. So I'm really interested to talk about this episode because like there's a lot to like break down here. But there's one thing I want to mention before like we get into the episode. A small thing that like you can't put in the show, but it's important for like context. So Ceasar and Cora, Like they are still slaves in South Carolina, but they are property of the U.S. government. That's an important distinction. Even though they can come and go as they please, they are still property of the U.S. government. So we're going to get into episode 2, entitled South Carolina. So D, watching this episode, like just first impressions, what did you think?
I was happy to see them happy. I will say that. And the heartbreaking part of it is that the happiness is still tainted. Mm-hmm. Like there's a part of them that is still very much in Georgia because Ridgway's ass is on the way. So there's never like a point where they can just fully just be, right? And I think the thing that did it for me, the books, and you saw it in the show how Sam was like, there's a train coming, and they were like, yeah. But the book goes a little further because they missed like 4 or 5 trains because they just wanted to be there. But me, thinking like, I know y'all happy, but y'all need to get the hell on. Like the further away from Georgia you can be, the further away you like to go. But I wasn't thinking that there's always a fresh hell for them. They have no idea what's next. So the thought of them leaving where they were, this almost utopia, and going to somewhere that is much closer to Georgia than where they were, I can only imagine the amount of regret and sadness they had if they were without them thinking like, damn, we should have just stayed where we were. We got greedy. You know what I mean? We wanted too much. So instead of me thinking, well, I felt bad for thinking y'all need to get the hell on because y'all being greedy, y'all just happy, to be there. Y'all go somewhere else and be happier. They are thinking, I don't need to be greedy. I need to be happy with what I have. Of course, until it got extreme and they realized that it wasn't what they thought it was.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because even though this looks like paradise for them, they are dressing nicer. They're coming and going as they please. I have another trivia question for you. Do you know the first state to secede from the Union?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. So it goes to show you, no matter how far they go, it's just going to be hell but repackaged. And I really want to like dig deep into the South Carolina episode because, in particular with the doctors. So they make a little. they make a little change by having a parallel between Ceasar and Cora visiting like different doctors. But when Ceasar visited his doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, I saw you had your eye on this," and he hands him a book. The book is The Odyssey, and Ceasar says this isn't on the approved reading list. Why wouldn't it be? Why? What makes you think? What do you think about that, D?
Of course, the first thing I thought of, well, damn, what's The Odyssey about? What is it? Does it have anything to do with escape or making yourself better or seeing something for what it is instead of what it looks like? But Ceasar did a better job. Wait, what's his name at this point?
Christian. It's Christian now.
Christian makes a point to say, because the doctor's like, oh, they don't care. You can read here. Nobody cares if you can read. Caesar says, okay, if they don't care what I can read, then why they care what I read? And then, of course, that tips off the doctor, and he's like, oh, you pretty smart, huh? And I was like, oh shit, like immediately, oh no, oh no. And that was another thing that was hurtful for me because I'm like, you have to stay in a constant state mentally of I cannot show these people what I know. Like there's not a point where Ceasar could ever live out his full potential because that's when shit gets scary. Like, oh wait, this nigga with gray eyes know how to read and put stuff together. And it was a word he used. What was the word? I can't remember what word he used. But it was rudimentary for us. But he's like, oh, you understand what that means? And I'm like,
aptitude.
The word is aptitude. Man. And it's so insulting, man. It's just like, I think the part that's the most insulting is the doctor probably really didn't mean anything by it. He was genuinely surprised that he knew what it meant because Black people don't know words because they're not taught them. They're not meant to. And he knows what's on the curriculum of what they are taught. So it's still very much, like you said, placating these people to, we're going to make you think that this is what's happening. But in reality, we just keeping y'all happy enough so that y'all won't kill us off because you can. and we need to make sure you don't understand that you can. Right? Like people like, who was it? I can't say his name. This rapper that I used to like was like, it seems like a choice. Like if you're born into this, like slavery was 400 years, right? Like it's just generation after generation after generation of people who are born into a system that you think life is supposed to be. We are born right now, and the way we see the world is the way we think the world is. What if somebody was like, "Oh, you didn't know y'all weren't supposed to be like this?" And we're like, "Wait, what?" Just like now, y'all, if you go to this country, you can go to the doctor and get that mole removed today. Like they're just making y'all do it this way because they can. So just imagine that. Like we think we're free, we're Americans, we're free, we do whatever we want to. And other people are like, ooh, not even close, because you don't know what you don't know. And South Carolina is very much using that because as evil as these people are, they're smart.
And that's exactly why Negroes can't read certain books, because how dare a Negro imagine a world outside of like what they know? Like, oh, people get to travel, people get to do this, do that. Like how dare like a Negro? So that's important to note that not only does Caesar possess the ability to read, he's actually quite educated. So yeah,
Caesar got that third eye.
That's
like
important.
He can read. He's educated, and not only that he's educated, he has the understanding to put other stuff together. Like he can take what you've given him and read more from that on his own. Like he can go beyond what you're feeding him, right? So like if I teach you the word red, and then you see it somewhere else, you're like, oh, okay, this is red. And then if you see red within another word, you're like, oh, okay, I can sound this out and figure out this new thing. Caesar can do that. And they're like, whoa. I just want you to learn this one word. Don't go learning more. It's like, what are you doing? And it's just, yeah. Even with the women that they were teaching at the school, it's the same thing.
Right.
I want you to know enough so that when you go to the grocery store, you know how to read the word milk so that you can buy me milk. But
exactly,
don't do nothing else. That's enough.
Exactly. Like basically, like we like I said, it's a thin veneer of like, oh, we're like doing this for you, but it's really just to continue serving us. But Caesar and Cora now have jobs in South Carolina. Like they have like actual jobs that they go to, and Cora's job is quite interesting. To say the least. So D, what do you think about Cora's new job?
I hate it. Okay, so it's like those what is it, the Civil War reenactments? Don't they do those? Do they still do those?
They still do those. Very much so. Yeah.
So she's pretty much an actress, a method actress who pretends to be a slave at some point. Sometimes she pretends to be an African warrior. But it is very much this museum that this person has put together, I guess he thinks is for the good or whatever, to educate people about what life used to be like for slaves and Black people. And where there are points of truth, it's just the same whitewashing where this is how it looks. And the most accurate was probably the plantation part, because they kind of made it seem they made it seem like he knows a lot of bit about that. Because I mean, he's cracking that whip like he used to be convict.
Yeah, he was like, hey, I used to dibble dabble,
a lifetime ago, but I still got it. What I'm saying? But the rest of it was just like whatever he would say, and that again makes white people feel better about what has happened. Like this. Look at this plantation. This is evil. Look what this is. But look what we have done. Look at South Carolina. Look how we've made these people happy, and look how much life is better. It's all a part of the same machine, I guess, to show that slavery is not that bad, or it wasn't that bad, or it's not as bad as it used to be. When very well it is, because Cora just got here 2 months ago,
right?
From Georgia. Okay. You gotta talk about the script too.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna get to that. It's the but she works at the Museum of Natural Wonders, and this is a thing that used to happen. This is an
Natural
actual,
wonder.
yeah, this is a thing that used to happen. You could go into a museum and you could see like, oh, this is how it used to be. We saved the savages from there, yada yada yada. But yeah, D, you mentioned script, and so Caesar goes into the store to buy his depilatory and
Depilatory.
pillatory. So he goes to the store and he's told it's 50 cent, and he's like, oh shit, and this will come to me like goddamn, like 50 cent. But yeah, but there's
He really
one
did say that.
there's one important thing here, like the store owner. Well, I'm not gonna say store owner. The worker of the store says
The
you can put this
register,
you can put this on script for what was that, $1.25?
$1.25.
So D, like what, like okay, so we hear script mentioned again in the episode. So if people who make just a little bit of money continue to put things on credit, how would they pay off that credit?
I wonder. Maybe odd jobs. Maybe taking everything they ever earned and putting it towards that credit that they owe. So it's almost like working for nothing.
Exactly, for like basic needs. So yeah, I'm glad this was included because it's another like layer of like oppression. Like basically you have, like I said, once again, the thin veneer of like progression, because you have this store across the street from the white store, but I'm pretty sure that the pillatory in that white store ain't no 50 cents.
I was just going to say, they mentioned that in the book that the prices in the black stores are, I want to say, 3 times more than the white stores. Yeah. So it's already 3 times more. Then it's a markup on that if you get it on script.
Exactly. Exactly.
Already. After Wazoo, it's ridiculous. It's insane. But like and then when I add, they drop the vitamins in the bag with the depilatory. They free. Now, if you want somebody to get something, what's the best way to give it to them?
For free.
We saw it on the wire. We see that everything in here, test us. Take these, please. Please. We saw it on Snowfall here. It's free. It's free.
And if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So if this man just told you that this depilatory is 50 cents, but he dropped something into your bag and he says it's free. Something
you didn't ask for. And he said they call them vitamins.
Yeah, they call them vitamins. Kind of like the witch doctor back on the plantation. Like, nah, bro, I'm good. I'm good.
My witch doctor, I'll take them vitamins. I don't know what this is.
No, he actually says root doctor, which is like very, very deep reference. The root doctor, but yeah. So I'm good on that. But I want to transition now to what's really happening in South Carolina. And I always say about slavery, like no matter how bad you think it is, it's like 10 times worse, because this part of the episode had like a Handmaid's Tale-esque like vibe to it. Handmaid's Tale is like a what if, like, okay, this is where we're heading to. This stuff actually happened. So do you want to talk about basically Cora's visit to the doctor and what they were doing with that ultimately?
Absolutely. I want to say, first of all, the trip to the doctor was in itself troubling, mostly because there is no reasonable expectation for you to think Cora asked or wanted to go to this doctor's appointment. Let's put that out there. This was an examination that she was forced to partake in. Okay, it looked as if she was having a pap smear. They are very invasive. It is necessary. We get it, but there is a process that happens when you go to the doctor, and it's not just this particular procedure. You've been to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, they tell you what they're going to do. This is what's going to happen. Do I have your permission to do this? This is what I'll need to do. This is what it is. So the doctor came in. Cora was in her stirrups. He went in. He opened her leg. It's just like, even though it looked gentle, there was no, hey, I need you to open your legs for me so I can do this and do this and this. It was just like, hey, come on, girl, let me do what I got to do. Okay, look like you got something going on. What happened? And was it your master? And he's like, I don't mean to be cruel, but still, these are questions that you don't have to answer. If this is personal information, you can offer, but you don't have to answer. And the whole, this is just so I can see if you can have children for your benefit is bullshit, of course. He wanted to know if she had children or if she planned to, because he's very, very well ready to give her this hysterectomy. Because it's like, okay, I know you've had sex. That's clear. I can tell, right? I can tell you've had sex. Let me remind you of what happened, right? Because he's like, was it your master? So now, of course, her thoughts having sex, if she was abused by her master, is now remembering how awful it was, right? So he's got that on his side. And then she had to explain what really happened, which is also awful. And then he's like, oh, well, I can solve that for you. So, even if it happens again, it shouldn't, but if it does, you don't have to worry about babies, because I know you don't want babies. And she's like, well, what if I don't want to? He's like, oh, it's your choice. And right then I was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. And then he took her blood, which concerned me because she mentioned that somebody took some 2 weeks ago. You don't take that much blood at all.
No, hold on. Sorry to interject. Not just
picture.
A little bit of blood. She says
picture.
Yeah, she says a picture of blood. And he was like, oh, it may feel like that, but it wasn't that much.
It was. You know how much blood somebody's taking. You know how much blood somebody's taking.
It was. Like that.
So they're just taking their blood because they're testing. So my thought is, after the whole we're gonna take your blood, I'm wondering if they're testing it for, whatever else, like diseases or whatever else, or if they're using it for something, which is probably the case, or I mean, who knows? Who knows?
So this South Carolina portion gets to once again, no matter how bad you think slavery is, it was 10 times worse. It gets to now we're getting into like eugenics, where and not just eugenics, like actually testing on African American, subjects, because there were hospitals that tested on African American subjects sometimes while they were alive without anesthesia, because like, oh, the black body can sustain this. So we're getting into that now. Like, we are doing medical experiments on black subjects because the book mentions that Dr. Stevens is from this fancy new medical hospital, and they are doing research and they are using black people as subjects. So we're getting into that now. So now they are, like you said, they are experimenting on hysterectomies before they, of course, like, oh, we're going to try this on the black people before we try it on the white people. Like, that's what we're getting into now.
Of course, we have to see what it does to y'all first. Mm-hmm. We got to make sure it's not going to kill you, but then it does. Mm-hmm. So then, if that's the case, then what do we need to do? Why do we need to move on to anything else if it's killing y'all? Because then we'll go back to drawing board. Because, again, they leave out some stuff, but they put an important thing. And an important thing in the book they left out is that this was also a grave robber. So mm-hmm. they have been experimenting on corpses. So that's the first, corpses is what we'll use because we ain't got nothing else. But if we're going to use live bodies, it's definitely going to be these folks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going to tell.
Right, exactly. They say that in the book. That's like, okay, who's gonna miss a black cadaver? Like, nobody.
I'm going to tell. What they gonna tell? Who's gonna miss it? Who? Even the live people, just like Cora. Mm-hmm. If she goes and tells people, hey, this person took how much blood from me, they're gonna be like, oh, you're exaggerating. And they're just trying to help you. They're just trying to help. So yeah, it's a mess. Now the vitamins though, I want to know what you think. What do you think that was? Because I want to add, we've talked about Tuskegee a lot, and Tuskegee was a little different in the point of Tuskegee was not an experiment where they gave people syphilis. Tuskegee was an experiment where they did not treat syphilis to see how bad it could get, which is horrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about Tuskegee experiment. I'm glad you clarified that.
It's horrible just to think. And then I think the thing that makes it even worse is that even in the beginning, when you wanted to see what was happening with it so that you could study the disease and get the medicine for it, when the cure was available, they purposefully did not give it to them because still wanted to see, okay, how long can you live if you don't get this medicine? Because that helps, of course, get people the medicine. Okay, how bad does it get if you don't get the shot? What happens if you do get the shot? And they all use this on Black bodies. Now, these vitamins, I think, it might be something different. I'm honestly not sure because Caesar didn't take them. So I don't know if it was a thing where it was doing something to people or if it was a placebo for people that were already sick. I don't know. Either way, it wasn't helpful. I can say that for sure.
Yeah. See, that one's been circling in my mind for a second, and the only clue that I have is when Caesar puts the vitamin. Well, I won't even like call them vitamins. I'm just gonna say pills. Puts them on the doctor's desk, and
the arsenic.
Yeah, and he's saying like we pretty much have to weed out the weak ones in the race. So even though I can't quite think of what these might be, they're clearly like experimental, and they're like, like, okay, so if you survive after taking these, then okay, we know a little more now. So they're clearly meant to, weed out the weak ones.
See, my thought was that they were making them impotent, but I'm not sure. I can't, like I said, I don't know, because honestly, you can say they were whatever you want to, and it's probably right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because Caesar made a point to take them and throw them away, like not just the person that was sick, like not
all of them. Yeah.
I get all of these, and I'm gonna throw them away. I think there is there is a powerful point in that, because Caesar saw what was happening and he could have just let it go. Like he could have very well just been like, okay, I won't take them and we'll see what happens. But he was looking out for his people and he threw them away, which was kind of scary in itself, because if somebody had said like, why are you doing this? Why are you taking my vitamins? What would he have said?
Right.
Bad for you. And he works for the doctor, so that's out the window. Which is a change, by the way, because he don't work for the doctor in the book. He stays in the mind. He also has a girlfriend, but we need to do all that.
Yeah. We're just gonna omit that one, but
I wanna only point it out to say that I do like the fact that they've made Cora a little softer to him in the show because of the limited amount of time that we get to see the two of them. Because in the book they had more time, and it kind of shows you that she was kind of drawing it out a little bit. Like she had feelings for him, you could tell, but she was just kind of like, wait a minute. And he was applying a little pressure by getting another girlfriend, because she was like, well, who is May or whatever her name is?
Just little friend.
Yeah, just little friend.
I kick it with sometimes.
I don't care who you date. You sure?
You sure? Okay. You sure about that? All right. Oh, so it's cool if I talk to her. All right.
It's cool. Right. Yeah, but I think it's just important to see that, because we know what's coming. We're not gonna spoil, of course, but we know what's coming. And I think it's interesting to see Cora being cared for in that way by him, because it is very much a like loving, tender, like protective care about her that we can't see why. We still don't know why. Even with the whole good look thing, they didn't say it, and I wish they had put it in the show. But she asked, well, why did you pick me? What made you ask me to come? And he was like, because I knew you could do it. And that was an important point to me, because I was like, well, damn, that's tough. Like I like it. Like I like that's what it was. It wasn't about, I like the way you look. I thought you was fine. I just wanted somebody to come with me. It was just like, nah, I knew you make it. And that's one more person that'll make it off. So yeah, I do, yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. Back to the pills and the doctors and everything else. Lucy, was she telling the truth about Evansville?
I mean, I'm sure it's like a half truth, like, because she is all right. And this is me jumping ahead. So Ridgway picks a book up off her desk, and what does that book say?
Oh, I don't remember. What was it?
Oh, it says tubal. It's like tubal experiments or something like that. Or tubal. Yeah. So she is where, because he was like, oh, we're both playing our part in this. So so she is well aware of what's going on. And perfect segue, D, because I do want to talk about Cora becoming more aware that something is wrong. And I want to talk about that dream sequence where she goes into the doctor's office and she sees Mabel on the table, and she slices her throat. What do you make of that?
And for people who don't know, because they don't really show it. Well, they kind of imply it, but Mabel's her mother, right? Like,
Mabel's her mother, right?
And Mabel has escaped from the plantation. And Ridgway's biggest failure is that he wasn't able to bring Mabel back. Okay, so Cora, it's almost, for me, it's almost like she has the opportunity to bring children into the world, and they're trying to take it away from her. But Mabel was able to do it, and she left her.
And she basically she threw that gift away, basically. Yeah,
she threw it away. Yeah, and it's like, because she says, I think one of her first lines in the show was, "My mother, the first and the last things my mother gave me was an apology."
It's an apology.
And that's powerful in itself, because it's like, I can only imagine what you think bringing a child into that, because I have 2 children I brought into this world, and there have been times where I was like, this was the most selfish thing I've ever done. And I know it is, like, it is what it is. I mean, I have no regrets in having my children, but there's still a part of me that is like, what have you done to them, being that they had no choice whatsoever to be here, but here they are. And that's just parents in general. None of us asked for this, but it is a gift and a curse of being a parent, that you have to reconcile with the fact that I have put you in this life, and now, good luck. That's what it is. But Cora's point of view is not that. It is, I think there's an understanding that, she knows her mama had to do what they told her to do. So I don't think it's like, how could you have a baby? It's more so, I know you had to do it. You had this baby. There are points in my life where I know you cared and loved me. How could you leave me here when you know what happens to strays? Because she always thought herself a stray. You know what happens to strays. How could you love yourself more than you love me? And I think that's what it is. So her slitting her mom's throat, especially seeing herself in her mom's eyes, was like, you don't deserve to live. And she's, of course, very, very bitter because her mom left her. Very bitter. And then the fact that the lady was screaming in the background in her dream, of course helped. Of course helped. Did you think that that's what that was? Now, that's what I want to ask May, the woman who kept screaming, "They're taking my babies." Was that PTSD, or you think that's something that Lucy did to her? Because she was looking at Lucy saying, "You're taking my babies," and Lucy made it a point to cover her mouth.
Yeah, because they are all in cahoots. Like, they know what's going on. So this is like a curriculum for the Black people here. You go to work, you go to the doctor, and then you have these etiquette classes. They're all in cahoots here. There's the system for African Americans in the States, so they all know what's going on. Like she's well aware of what's going on.
Do you think that the purpose too is that they get the population under control and then go back to the savagery?
That
slowly, even.
Yeah, so like going back to what I said, I think they're like, okay, we need Negroes here, but then they reach a point where they're like, hey, okay, we have too many, so let's put a halt. Like this is a good problem to have too many niggas, but we have too many niggas. But let's put a halt to this, because they said, like, okay, you could bear 2 children before we do this procedure. So you can bear 2 children, or if you to use an outdated medical term, if you're an imbecile, or if you're a repeat offender. So if you're an upstanding Negro, you can have 2. You're allowed 2 children, but we don't want
blood. Don't forget the blood. It's your blood. Something's wrong with your blood.
Oh yeah, something's wrong with your blood. Yeah. So if you have so basically they're trying to keep the Negro population like in control, because it got out of control for a while.
And they'll get to decide who procreates. So it's still breeding. It's still very much breeding. It's just selective. It's just selective breeding. And again, they show that they make a point to do that with Cora, because the doctor's like, "No, you're fine. You haven't had any kids. You don't have to worry about this." But then Lucy later says, "Oh, well, he checked your blood, and that's now not true." Really? Yeah. Because she's like, "You're scheduled to have the procedure," and she's like, "I ain't." Like,
and then Cora is like, "News to me. I didn't want it."
Me? He said I was good. She's like, "Oh no, you were, but now, no, not so much." So yeah. So it's again, very, very greatly and very perfectly showing us there are levels, but evil is evil, because Lucy is just as evil as the rest of them. She is. She is putting these women through these etiquette classes and making them feel good about themselves, so that when she tells them, "Hey, go get your tubes tied," they'll say, "Okay, oh, sorry, go have this surgery, not tied, severed." They'll be like, "Okay." Lucy knows.
And that scene was so creepy when Miss Lucy was talking to her and like the camera was like directly in her face. She's like, "But it's so good for you.
It's great.
It's great.
You're gonna have the procedure."
Like,
and
that
then,
was
of course,
so creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then add again something else that the book helped with. Lucy was making it to the point where she was like, "Cora, you have the procedure, and then you can go tell the girls that it's okay to do it too." So she's trying to get Cora to help making all these women impotent. And it's just like, they're like, "Hey, it's too many of y'all niggas. It's just too many. You got your little dressed up clothes, and we letting y'all live, but it's too many of y'all. We have got to the point where we realize that we are now the minority, and that's a problem in itself. Because at this point, like you said, there have already been uprisings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they know what can happen.
Yeah,
they know
because South Carolina was it was like a coastal colony. So, like I said, they're getting a lot of those slaves like from the West Indies who witnessed like those uprisings on like those small like sugarcane plantations on those islands, and they got up there and it was like, "Oh, these niggas are out there. We got to change up something before they get us out of here. We got to change up something." So,
was this before or after Nat Turner?
I can't say. Nat Turner was in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken, but this was definitely after Denmark Vesey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they know what can be. That's the point. Like, they know.
Right.
And again, that makes that helps too with the whole reading thing, because of course this stuff has to be reported. So you let me read that a bunch of Negroes got together and this is what happened. What's gonna stop me from getting my Negroes together?
Right.
There's nothing. Nothing's gonna stop, because I've seen it work. And now you put in paper that we outnumber y'all 3-1, 2-1, whatever. So you telling me that there are more niggas than white people? Okay. I can do something with that. And that's what they're making sure that they don't read, and making sure to call Negroes it's, and making sure to say these are imbeciles and you can't have the baby because your blood says that you are less than. Not just me. I'm just saying the science is saying that you're not capable of raising these children. And what did Lucy say? "Oh, it's just not fair to have a woman nursing a child in a common room. Girl, it's a titty. Like,
it's a titty.
like it's a room full of women.
The mammies would nurse those little white children. So we
have seen worse on the plantation than a child eating. Like, let's relax, Lucy. Like, come with something better than that.
Yeah.
Come with something better than this, please.
So Deidre, there's one thing I wanted to ask you about that might be like a throwaway comment for like most people, but I want to talk about Sam now. Sam is like one of the like best people, like as good as they come in this novel. But in the show, when Ceasar and Cora go to Sam and they say like, "Hey, this is happening," Sam says, "I didn't know this was going on."
I didn't know. I swear I thought it was safe.
And by the way, like, he's not lying. Like, he is genuine. Like, he seriously did not realize this was going on. But my question to you is, how could you live in this state and not realize this is going on? This is rhetorical, by the way. Because
so if Sam is the same Sam from the novel, it's possible. Because Sam is a man who minds Sam's business. And if Sam has no interest in a woman or wife or children, specifically Black children, then it's very possible he just don't know. And they made it a little different because, like I said, in the novel he was a barkeep he was a barkeep or something. Here he's a photographer, and I don't know if these things are just separate. Like he may do both. But I think it's possible, and it may just be me wanting the best from Sam because I just want one white person to be who they say they are, other than Fletcher. So he may not have known, or he may not have understood. Maybe that's it. So like even if he knew, maybe he didn't grasp like what it meant, right? Or maybe he didn't understand how important it was to them. Like it may be a situation where he knew what was happening, but he let his ignorance allow him to believe that they were okay with it. Like, well, yeah, I knew they were doing it, but I thought y'all were cool with it. Like you're not happy that they're taking your babies? Well,
yeah. So here's what I think. I think obviously, like I said, Sam's a pretty good guy. He's an abolitionist. He's part of this network of abolitionists.
Good.
Pretty good. But it just goes to show you, like, even like if you're outside of this race, even the best people don't know what it's like unless they go through it. Like, because to be totally ignorant to this, and you are an abolitionist in the slave state, but to be totally just aloof to what's going on to these people and the people you're helping, like I just think that's an important thing to point out. Like, even if you have the best intentions, like there's still only so far you can go with like your level of understanding because you're not going through it. And like I said, Sam's a pretty good guy, but he just simply could not fathom that this was going on in the state right under his nose.
And he didn't want to know either. That's another part too. Like you're saying, like if you're going to be an ally, these are things you need to know. Like safe is not just, oh, you're not going to get beatings. Safe is you're going to be safe. Like you don't have to worry about this thing and this thing. But I also wanted to ask you, do you think anybody has stayed as long as Ceasar and Cora? Because he kept saying a train coming.
I don't think so. I don't think so. But then again, I'm curious to know where most of the people in like they end up with Sam like come from, because like Georgia's like the worst of the worst. Like they endured like swampland to get there. Like Georgia is really the worst of the worst. So of course South Carolina is paradise from them. But if you're coming from maybe like Tennessee, like you're like, oh, South Carolina, oh, okay, it's a little better, but let me proceed on to the next state or you know, any other state basically. But yeah, I do think they make it a point to say, like, you know, I like, because I think the novel says the third train passed and then the fourth. So yeah, I don't think anyone decided to stay as long as them. So I think Sam might be only in it for the short game. Like people only stay with him like a short amount of time, but still, it's amazing that he didn't realize this stuff was going on.
Right, and it made me think about them staying long because it's like, are you talking to the people who you've helped over time? And I know he talks to Cora and Ceasar, but I'm like, maybe he talks to them just because they've been there so long. I don't know. And he just never cared before because they were on the train and off the next one, you know? I don't know. Again, this is me trying to make Sam, trying to make him good, because I just want somebody to be good. Lucy ain't good. Ridgeway ain't good. Connolly sucks. Terrence sucks. James sucks. Everybody sucks. And the doctors suck. Everybody. And I just want somebody to be good. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. They also do a good job of showing us how they needed help without making white saviors. They did a good job of that, because like Fletcher, there's no way they would have gotten there without Fletcher. Like it just would have been impossible. But showing us what all they had to do to even get to Fletcher is very powerful. And it kind of at the point it's just like, well, Fletcher, really, what did you do other than
Fletcher didn't do it? Yeah, Fletcher.
Like, what did they do?
Fletcher was just a contact guy.
Right, which of course they couldn't have done it without him. And
right, it's very important.
It's like, Sam, now that I've made it out of here, I've made it here, and now I've become a person that's fitting in society. I'm a great person. What did you do? You gave me a new name and you helped me here, which I couldn't have done without you, and it's great. But I just really like the fact that they didn't make it like, oh my gosh, Fletcher and Sam have saved Cora and Ceasar, because they didn't. They saved themselves. And Cora repeatedly saves herself. Can we talk about Homer real quick? His little ass.
Yeah. I actually want to close with Homer and Ridgeway, so let's get into that with that little nigga hat on.
Okay, look. Okay, I have been wrestling with this. Okay, because there are only white actors in that bar, right? And I'm just wondering how I would have felt if I were on set and I didn't know that line was coming. And he said, "This is got a little nigga in my bar with his little nigga hat on." I would have stopped, just like you laughing, because when I heard that, I was like, how are you so mad that you are focused on everything about this man, making everything about him? Nigger, your hat is, you got a nigga hat on, you got on a nigga suit, everything about you says, and like, I just wonder what I would have done if like Joy Aitchison had started laughing. Like, would I have been offended? Because it was funny. Like
the way he delivers the line is hilarious. I'm sorry. Like, I know this is
he was
a serious
already
show.
upset.
Little nigga on the stool with the little nigga hat on.
He's already mad. Let me go watch the ball while I go get the chair. Like, he already mad, and then he's like, this nigger hat on. What? But anyway, Homer. I'm sorry. We're gonna get to Homer. It looks as if May, the woman who's screaming about her babies, is also a runaway. I'm assuming like most of the black people runaways, right? In South Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay. So a slave catcher has May, or bounty hunter, as they call them, which is a slave. That's a slave catcher, right? In their days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He has May, and Ridgeway and Homer show up, and I'm like, oh, there we go. Like, anytime I see Ridgeway, it's doom. Like, I hear, you know how like on Friday, Debo has their music. That's what I hear when Ridgeway comes around. All right, so we mentioned this, but Homer is a child that Ridgeway has because he was given him. I think it was for a debt or something, maybe. So they gave him Homer, and Ridgeway immediately set him free. But where's the child gonna go? Where's Homer gonna go? You are a free 5-year-old, because he's had him for a while now, right? Where's he gonna go? So Ridgeway is pretty much just taking him under his wing. It's very complicated to me in the point of he's very aware that Homer is a black child, a nigger, even in his words with that hard ER. Make sure y'all know they always use hard ER, but there is a respect that he demands for Homer, and I don't really think it's for Homer. I think it's just an extension of respect for him. It's like, it's almost like, you're not my property, because I don't want to jump ahead. Sorry, I don't want to do that. But you're not my property by name, by state, or whatever else. But you will obey me. And it seems as if the relationship they have. And Homer that's his life. So Homer doesn't even know that he's a slave, but he is.
But he's a slave, essentially, yeah.
Because there's no point that Homer can say, I don't want to do this anymore, and Ridgeway just be like, oh, okay, go do whatever you want to do. Because then what does he do? What does a free, how old is he, 10 maybe?
He's a 10-year-old, yeah, he's a 10-year-old.
What does a free 10-year-old black child do? You don't have any family. Your family is Ridgeway. You drive for Ridgeway day in and day out. You write down Ridgeway's notes. You collect his bounties, and you talk to black people, and you sit and you behave. And he got a little fast, I'll say that. He speaks as if he's free. He knows that he's protected. But if anything should happen to Ridgeway, Homer is just still nigga. Like I said, that's what he is, a child. So I'm very concerned about him, although I don't like him because, circumstances. But I get it. Like, he has Stockholm syndrome, because what else can he have?
Yeah, and I wanted to talk about Ridgeway in closing, because on 2 separate occasions he criticizes basically the systems of slavery in 2 different states, and in particular, like the overseers. Like, we can essentially call them slave owners and overseers, because Miss Lucy is definitely overseer as well, just a different type. Absolutely. He criticizes them, so he seems to be like above the institution of slavery, yet he's a bounty hunter. So like, just talk about Ridgeway's character and like what you think about him.
that is why he purposefully uses it, because there's a part of him that knows that it's wrong. And if he can separate the person from the property, then he thinks it's okay. But I don't know how he does that with Homer being a constant reminder that he is neither. Because to me, it's very, I actually like that he has Homer, because it's just that thing where it's just like, I'm not racist, I have black friends. Like, this is a perfect example of that. Perfect example. Because if you're not a racist, there's no way you would take people and give them back to other people, especially if they flee and you know what happens to them. You've seen it. You see it. You've seen it. Terrence makes sure people know what happens to people that run away, and you go and deliver them to him, knowing what their fate will be. So I just don't. I don't get him. I don't understand what his. He's an enigma to me. Other than he's a racist, like there's no part of me that doesn't think he's racist. Of course, he's a racist, but I don't understand how he loves. Does he love Homer? Does he see Homer as like a pet? Maybe that's it. It's like a pet.
I don't know. He's definitely one of the most interesting characters of the book, like opposite Cora, of course, but because it's so hard to. Yeah, no, I know, and that's the thing. He's a great character because of how much I hate him. Because like I cannot figure out like his true motivations, and he is convinced for some reason that he's a man of principle, which is hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like he has found a way to in his mind separate a person from property, although they are one and the same. And because of that, he thinks that it is his job, it is his duty to return people's property to them. Not property that has been stolen, property that has been, in his mind, lost. And I don't.
Sure.
I don't know. I guess maybe if he thinks one day if something happens to Homer, maybe somebody will return him. Like, what you do to your property after you have it back is up to you. But that doesn't absolve him from being a racist, because that makes like he is very much a racist. And even that conversation he had with Cora in the beginning, I couldn't wrap my mind around that either. When he's like, you got to get that hate out of your, pretty much like Scully, got to get that hate out your heart. I read that as a warning, because he was like, because I know you're stray. You're mad about like your situation. You're mad about your mom leaving. So you're probably going to leave too. But if you do, I will get you. Yeah. Like you flying too close to the sun. Okay. See?
Yeah.
Okay. I see that. Because he could see the fire in her eyes. And he probably, I'm pretty sure Terrence told him about the altercation because they knew about the scar. So maybe he could see it. Like, look, your mama ran, so I know it's in you. Like, I know it's in you to be like her. And you may even know where she is. Y'all may have had a plan. There may be something, I don't know. But like you said, since I couldn't get her, just know.
I'm on your ass.
I'm on your ass forever. But it's funny though, because he gave her that speech when he should have been using it for himself. Like,
because if you want to get literary, like Mabel is his he's like Captain Ahab, and Mabel is his like
Come on now. Come on now.
I'm just saying, yeah.
Come on now. That's exactly what it is. Like he is literally obsessed with Mabel, and this is why he wanted to make sure to talk to Cora, because he's like, oh, she's here. Oh, I gotta talk to her. I gotta see her. Because she's an extension of Mabel. So it's like, I can't get to her, so let me put my fear into you. Because I can't, since she's been the ever elusive Mabel, let me put it into you. And I think a good part too that they left out was that Cora made it a point to say, I think he hates her as much as I do. Which is crazy.
So
crazy. Because honestly, both of them are obsessed with Mabel.
They are.
Both of them are. I think it's something I wanted to mention. Oh, Ridgeway. Yeah, we got to get to him getting there. The skyscraper. Because that's how he found. That's how he found her. Okay, it's a little different. So what do you think is going? Do you think that the same? I think they're going to write Caesar the same. I'm not going to spoil it yet because I know we'll get into this next. Probably that might be not so much later, but I think it's going to be the same. But Caesar's caught at this point. Like he's caught. Like
he's like dead to rights right now. Like there's no getting out of that situation.
He's stuck. Now the thing I think, and I want to also clear the air. Caesar is fine as frog's hair. We needed to make sure that gets out there and that everybody knows. Now, the point I want to make about that is not only is he as fine as the day is long after the first day of daylight savings, he has gray eyes. I think they're gray, right? That is something that will draw your attention to people because, of course, any Negro that has a quality that's outside of a regular nigga is going to draw attention, right? For breeding, for any other thing or whatever else. So him, like Ridgway toying with him was like gut-wrenching to me because he knew who he was. He knew who he was.
He knew, yeah.
And Caesar knew that he knew too. But the actor did such a great job of holding it together until he was like, you have very particular eyes. And like you could see, you could see a piece of Caesar die right then. Like it was subtle, but it was very much shit. Like it's out there now. Like there's no way I can get out of this. There's no question about whether he thought I was somebody else. I don't know. It was just like shit. All right, it's over. Now, I don't know where he's gonna take them, what he's gonna do with them, because he still got to get to Cora because she got away, thankfully, from Homer's dad. What did Homer think he was gonna do? Did he think? I know she's little, like Cora's little, which is a wonderful casting job, by the way.
Oh yeah.
It's magnificent because they kind of make it a point in the book that she's pretty young. She's like maybe less than 20. Maybe if that.
I would say Cora is like 17 or 18.
Yeah, she's like 17. So the casting is magnificent because she looks like a little girl, especially standing next to Caesar. She looks like a child. So I don't know if Homer saw that and thought that he was going to be able to get her. I don't know, but I want to add too that the curator, I guess I could call him, of the museum.
If we must give him such a dignified title,
I made it a point to put that little scenario. I mean, to improvise, and make that a part of the wonders of the world or whatever you said, natural wonder. And Cora ran away. Now, to be honest, when I first thought, I thought she was dreaming until I realized, oh shit, this is happening. Like he's really in there with her. I don't know. That's another thing I want you to. I want to know if you caught. Did you see the elevator attendant wink at her? Because shortly after that, that's when the situation with Homer came. But in the book, that's a little different. It's a little different. I'll tell y'all about it, I promise. But she runs away and she goes straight to Sam, and he sends her down. Now, what were your thoughts around that point, especially with what happened directly after with Caesar in the tunnel?
So, I will give my perspective from like reading the novel, and plus how most people may perceive it, like watching the show. So there are like we're susceptible to these tropes when we are like taking in this media. Like we think like, oh, like our first instinct is like, oh, I wonder what he's gonna do to escape, and I wonder when they're gonna be reunited. But then you're quickly, and this is me jumping ahead, sorry, but this is me jumping slightly ahead. But then you're brought down to reality, and you realize like, yeah, there's no like because now she. So basically, whatever Caesar saw in her, like it has to come out now. Like so that grit that she had, that determination that she had, it's all on her now because she has no guide on the rest of this journey. Like it's just her. So there's no there's no reunion. There's no savior for her. Like it's just her now. She's on her own.
Yeah, it's like it's so sad because again, the trope is there, the whole dream sequence, because it's used a lot. but I think it was important to use it here because, like you said, Ronnie, you want to believe that he's going to get away. You see with your eyes that Ridgway has his ass there. There's no getting away. Ridgway is standing there. He hasn't. There's no getting away. But there's still a party that's like, Caesar's going to figure it out. He has to. Like, because Cora's down there, and she's already said she's not getting on the train without him. So he's got to come down there. But once she has her thing, and you realize she's dreaming, and she gets on the train after the conductor has made it clear that this station is closed, you're like, no, because where's Caesar? But you know where Caesar is. You know. Like, there's no part of you that doesn't know where he is. There's no part that doesn't really know where Sam is.
Or do you? So, like, there's a part of us that needs to know what happens. They have to show us still what happens to Caesar. They have to show us what happens to Sam and why the station is closed. Because there's a reason the station's closed at this point. Like, there has to be. And if you think back, Ridgway has already said that there is an underground railroad. Like, he knows it exists, or at least he believes the folklore. And if nothing else, like you said, Ridgway is like a dog with a bone. And once he got whiff of an underground railroad, he's gonna go seek it out. I have no doubt in my mind that he has something to do with it, with the shutdown or whatever else is going on in Georgia. I also want to make sure we find out what happens to Lovey, maybe. Although we know. Yeah.
We know what happens. So yeah, that's where we are, y'all.
So yeah, that's all we have for this episode. Thanks for watching these two recaps. I'm really excited to get into the recap that we have next week. Episode 3, which is North Carolina. Which, if I were to pull like a singular piece out of both the novel and the TV show, like, it's the finest piece out of like both. Like what we saw with this North Carolina episode is possibly going to be the best episode of TV all year because it's magnificent. So excited to get to that. So D, I'm Ron. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Peace.